Hello, darlings, and welcome to a very special episode of the Focused on Infinity Hour, more or less. This one is going to be different, and we're going to give you season 2, episode 2 next week. Because as you may or may not know, I had a little tragedy in the family, as it were. The third, essentially, of the dogs that has been most important in my life, and probably the one that has been most present in my life over the past 13 years, sadly passed away on Friday. So I thought that it was... I considered canceling the show entirely because grief and bereavement is tough. It's tricky. And there is an extent to which some people don't really get the fact that, dogs are friends. Whatever else they are, whatever else they are not, they are a part of your life and your heart. The human heart does not know the difference between the loss of a friend, whether it is a human friend, a non-human friend, whatever. And I haven't had many friends. I have few friends that I have been so close to for so long. So I decided, instead of canceling entirely, to give you an episode that is about my days with dogs and a tribute to the 3 most special dogs, and of course focused on the tale that you're going to hear. You'll probably figure this out, but dog number 2 in the story you're going to hear is, in fact, Hamilton, the late, great Hamilton. Long may he live. And I hope that you all get to experience some of that joy, some of that connection in your non-human friendships, and also bring a little bit of that into your human friendships, because dogs have taught me so much about love in general and about connection. And in fact, it was my relationship with dogs that started with the 3 dogs that we are, representing today, that actually helped me become a better friend, a better partner, and to just open up more, to the extent that I do. I mean, your girl still got a Capricorn moon. It is what it is. But we are going to now go right into our episode, the Focused on Infinity Hour special episode, Days with Dogs. And I'll be here in the chat with you to hopefully enjoy it alongside you. And it's a little sad probably at parts, but such is life, right? See you there. Hey, a little dog content for you today. Say hello to the gang. One of the most common questions I get asked is how I'm able to walk 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dogs at one time. And the simple answer is because I'm not using force to walk them, right? Just these 2 dogs alone, I mean, that's almost 200 pounds a dog right there. And then, you add in Charlie. Regardless of the size, strength, activity level, amount of pulling, etc. your dog does, what you're using to work with them should not be just pure force. Even using just a leash and neck collar, you shouldn't be counting on your physical strength to interact with your dog and make sure that they go the right way and, don't get into anything. That should be training and love. But if for whatever reason you need better connection tools, then use something like a gentle leader chest halter or a head halter that works more using, physics and body mechanics than force. Prong collars and harnesses that attach in the back just ain't it. You wanna go outside, sweetheart? You just wanna lay here and get petted. Come on.
Who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a point on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. I have a secret to tell from my electrical well. It's a simple petulantly. My name is Blue Canary, one note spelled L-I-T-E. My story's infinite, like the Longines Symphony. It doesn't rest. Blue Canary in the alley by the light switch, who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. I'm your only friend, I'm not your only friend, but I'm a little glowing friend, but really I'm not actually your friend, but I am. There's a picture opposite me of my primitive ancestry, which stood on rocky shores and kept the beaches shipwreck free. Though I respect that a lot, I'd be fired if that were my job. After killing Jason off and countless screaming Argonauts, new bird of friendliness, like guardian angels, it's always near. Blue Canary in the alley by the light switch, who watches over you? Make a little birdhouse in your soul, not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul. While you're at it, leave the nightlight on inside the birdhouse in your soul. Not to put too fine a pine on it. Say I'm the only bee in your bonnet. Make a little birdhouse in your soul.
Happy Monday, folks. We are officially in that eclipse portal now, so everything's a little more topsy-turvy at the moment. Virgo season is already starting this Saturday, and we have a bunch of more minor transits happening throughout the week, so let's start unpacking. The busiest day of this week, astrologically speaking, is actually today, Monday, August 17th. We started off with a pretty challenging transit this morning and then had a couple nicer ones after that. So we're probably still feeling the effects of this mixed bag here. First, early this morning, Mars formed a square to Neptune from 4 degrees of Cancer over to Aries. And this can be a frustrating way to start off the week because a transit like this can be draining. It can sap our energy. It can be anxiety provoking. It can bring up internal conflicts about whether to rest or take action, whether to stay home or go out, whether to focus on yourself or prioritize others. And of course, the right answers to those questions will depend on the person and the situation. But I bet some of us woke up this morning with just a general sense of unease and discomfort and bleh. But that was probably helped by a more pleasant transit that happened earlier today when Mercury formed a trine to Saturn from 14 degrees of Leo to the fellow fire sign of Aries. This brings a flow of energy to our minds, our thinking, our communication, our movement in our local communities, our interactions with friends and neighbors, just our daily mundane activities. Saturn is a stabilizing influence, and it's really helpful when we're trying to tackle challenges, overcome obstacles, and prioritize more effectively, which is very helpful in this overwhelming world that we live in. And the fiery nature of this trine helps us to do all that with courage and to actually take action on those priorities. And then shortly after that, this afternoon, we experienced another fabulous transit with Venus forming a sextile to Jupiter from 10 degrees of Libra to 10 degrees of Leo. A nice soft aspect between the two traditional planets of good shit. What's not to like here? I mean, any transit has its good and its bad sides, of course, and it is possible that this one can cause us to kind of like overindulge and overextend ourselves and overdo it a bit. But in general, this sextile can really stimulate abundance, generosity, expansion, cheer, faith, optimism, resilience. Whether that's in our interpersonal relationships, just our internal dynamics, our resource management, our creative projects. And I want to highlight that last one because Leo is the sign of creative self-expression and Libra is the sign of art and beauty and aesthetics. So I really hope that all of y'all are engaging in some kind of creative activity these days, if just for the fun of it. Because I think learning how to be creative and flexible and messy and try new things is pretty fucking important in today's world. The last thing that happened earlier today was that the moon entered into sultry, spooky Scorpio. So, Monday has been a busy day, but it's actually all quiet on the Western Front. Tomorrow and Wednesday, not much happening in the skies. On Thursday, the moon will move along into adventurous philosophical Sagittarius, and I'll bring you this weekend's Astro News in the next clip.
On the subject of hierarchies, I wanted to talk briefly about the myth of the alpha dog. Now, a lot of us have this idea in our heads, and a lot of people use this language, oh yeah, my dog's a total alpha, and even using it with people, like, oh yeah, it's a real alpha male kind of personality, and blah, 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 all these things. But first of all, the myth of the alpha dog comes from, first of all, the myth of the alpha wolf, which was the first usage of the term and how that idea came into common understanding, right? What scientists did was they observed a group of captive wolves and they determined that that was how wolves behave. Okay, so captive wolves, first of all, don't behave the way that wolves do in the wild, right? Also, we have to understand that there is a lot of basically propaganda against wolves. Wolves and humans lived side by side for tens of thousands of years. I may have mentioned this in the first episode I did on dogs, but the way that we got dogs is not just by choice. Not like early humans saw wolves and were like, I think I can turn that into a pug. Let me just grab that guy and just keep breeding them until they're small and their faces are flat as fuck. No, that's not how it happened, right? The two species lived close together, right? Not together at first, but in close proximity, in close enough proximity that the things humans left behind, some wolves would get closer and, they would eat the garbage, or they would eat the bones we left behind, or the carcasses, whatever. And then some of the wolves learned that, hey, if we live closer to these humans, we get some of their spoils. And those wolves, the wolves that did that, learned behaviors that basically made it easier for them to be nearer to humans. And that, they got closer and closer and closer until eventually they made contact. And that relationship that at first was sort of parallel, it became unified. So, first of all, wolves, whatever you think about wolves and like the big bad wolf and all these stories that make wolves seem like monsters, one of the reasons for that is that we encroached on all of the territory that wolves lived in and used to hunt, and left them nothing. So then, yes, when we put up a pen and there were sheep in the pen, of course they came and took sheep from the pen because there were no more wild animals for them to hunt, right? We basically turned wolves into bandits and then complained about how they were stealing things. And this is kind of the way that humans have operated, especially just to keep it real, like the European colonizer sort of mentality, right? It's like, we go to this place and there's already people there, or there are already animals there, and we move them out of where they live. And then if they decide to fight back, we call them savages, right? And don't even start with me trying to say I'm comparing humans to animals, whatever, humans are animals. But anyway, you know what I mean. So the alpha wolf is a myth, but it's one that came from these studies on captive wolves, where they did form societies that were more hierarchical because they were just kind of slammed together. Now, even if it were true that wolves did behave in this super hierarchical manner, dogs are not wolves. In fact, the thing that makes dogs dogs and not wolves is their tractability, is their desire to please, is their desire to be around humans, is their desire to cooperate and listen to humans. So even if their forebears, the wolf, were strictly hierarchical and, listened to brute force and to power like that, dogs don't do that naturally. Let me give you an example of two dogs that I know personally as to why the myth of the alpha dog is so dangerous. There are two dogs. I love both of these dogs with all my heart. I've known them for just years. I think I've known them each for 7 or 8 years. One of them I've known since they were a puppy, since they first arrived with their parents, and either I or my employees walked this dog for his entire life. And the other one I met, when he was pretty young, and now he's getting older. At any rate, these two dogs are as different as two dogs can be. They're both male dogs. They're both altered. By the way, I always like to mention that we should start using the terms intact and altered rather than fixed, right? There's nothing wrong with the dogs. They are altered to suit our lifestyles and our purpose and what we think should happen with them. Even though I do agree that spaying and neutering is important, especially if you have dogs that roam around, I feel like it's definitely important for us to remember that this is a human solution to what is not really a problem in nature. And also to combat the idea and the, again, mythology that intact dogs are somehow more dangerous or something than dogs that are not. It's just not true, and science doesn't bear that out. And one of the big things that people cite when they say that you absolutely have to get your dogs altered is that they have less rate of cancer. But it's kind of a tricky way of putting things, because obviously your dog isn't going to get testicular cancer if they don't have testicles, right? It's a little weird and simplistic. But anyway, so these two dogs, they're as different as two dogs can be. About the same size. Both of them are very big dogs, okay? And one of them is what people would refer to as an alpha dog. He's just kind of a dick, for lack of a better word. He's blustery. He likes to kind of push other dogs around a little bit. And even worse, if we pass another dog on the street, or he sees another dog on the street from a distance that is another largish male dog, especially if that dog is intact, he wants to fight. And it's not just bravado. He literally wants to fight. I used to take him to the dog run, but I stopped because most of the time it's fine. he gets along great with dogs that I introduce him to and with whom he has formed a relationship. But if another male dog comes in to the dog run that has a little bit of that same sort of stance, that air quotes alpha dog posture, well, he's going to fight him. And he basically runs up to them, gets real stiff, looks them right in the face, and says, okay, either you're going to let me mount you or we're going to fight. Now, some people think, okay, great, I like that from a dog. But think about this. Now we can't go to the dog run because of him, right? There's lots of places you can't take a dog like that. There are lots of circumstances where he will not be welcome. On the other hand, dog number 2 is probably the friendliest and most easygoing dog I've ever met. I mean, he's loud and he's needy and he's right up under you whenever he's around, but he gets along with, I haven't met another animal that he doesn't get along with, right? He doesn't chase squirrels. It doesn't matter the size of the dog, big, little, he plays with all of them. And if it's a small dog, he will lay down and flop onto his side and roll on his back and let the smaller dog jump all over him. If it's a larger dog, he'll play with them too and basically give as well as he gets. And he's usually the dog that gets all the other dogs playing, and he'll even be the one who they kind of pick on, right? He will take that role, but in doing so, he becomes the social center of the group, right? So what a lot of people would view as weakness, or they would say like, oh yeah, he's a beta dog, he's not an alpha dog. Okay, great. But I have taken this dog with me for like 4 hours when he's only supposed to get a 1 hour walk. Why? Because he's just that good at being around other dogs. Because he's really friendly. Because I can trust him not to catch an attitude with anyone. And so that means his life is so much more full, right? His life is more full because he doesn't exhibit those ego-driven tendencies. His life is more free. So there's a discussion of freedom versus ego in the way that these two, again, both male dogs, present themselves and the way that they deal with the world. And that is something that our society is just absolutely lousy with. And what our society teaches men, and honestly everyone by extension, is that ego and projection of yourself onto the society and the world around, and the people around you is the way to get respect. It does not teach us that cooperation is the best way to proceed. But let's look at the animals, the societies, everything in the world, whether it be in human society or in the world itself. Where does the greatest strength come from? Where are the examples? And of course, we can give the example of, yes, in war, where you take the projection of ego to its furthest end. Yes, when you go to physical violence, probably the one who is most willing and able and likely to do violence is going to get their way in the moment, even if that moment is the course of an entire war. But these are not the people who are the most free. These are not the people who succeed the most, who have the best lives. And honestly, these are people who you're glad to see leave. Because dog number 1, well, yeah, some people kind of like that he is an alpha dog and that he's protective and that, if something really went down, he might be able to fang another dog on their behalf. But when it gets down to it, who's actually in charge of the group? It's definitely not dog number 1. Dog number 2 is the dog to whom all the other dogs go because they know that he knows where the treats are. They know that he has the right kind of behavior for them to be able to go anywhere. Following his lead will get these dogs more rewards, right? So even though they will indeed, they'll get out of dog number 1's way when he barrels them over, but they're happy to see him go, right? Their greetings are not as effusive. And this is a pretty easy thing to see how it overlays on human personality, right? We all know somebody who is a blustery and bravado-filled person who has to be the loudest in the room and who has to be, air quotes, dominant, right? Yeah, there is sometimes something attractive about these people, but when it gets down to it, we just don't want to be around them for long, right? The thing that draws you to somebody who is always constantly projecting themselves on you without any consideration as to you or to the situation, right? This is not something that is enduring. This is not a way of behaving that is enduring. The people who you want to see, who you're always happy to see come, they're the ones that understand gentleness and compassion. They're the ones that understand that we only live by thriving together. So a lot of the mythology of the alpha dog and the alpha wolf is just a way to continue to propagandize us into hierarchy, into looking at these stereotypically, air quotes, masculine ways of going about things as the thing to look for. But if we really think about it, this is very rarely the best way to walk through the world. Holy shit, story time. So I'm walking around with the dogs as I tend to do. Say hi to the gang. And I came around the corner just in time to see what appeared to be a man and a woman fighting. And I see, the woman kind of hits him a little bit and he hits her like directly in the face. Like she went down, like decked her. So whatever had happened before that, like it was clear who was in the wrong at this point. So I approached them slowly asking, is everything okay? Are you okay? What's going on? Are you okay? And she was like, I'm gonna call the cops on you. Call the cops, call the cops. To me, she said, call the cops. And that's where the choice point was for me. I was like, I just saw what happened, but like, these are two black people. So I just slowly got closer and closer to them and said I wasn't gonna call the cops because I've seen too many things happen. But I eventually worked my way with the dogs in between the two of them and then allowed her to get distance. And then I said, I'm gonna keep my distance, but I'm gonna follow you to make sure he doesn't come back. We went around a corner, he came back around the other corner, we went the other way. In the end, I stayed with her till she got to the train. And I said, if you do need to call the cops, here's my card. Hopefully that was the right thing.
Okay, so things are getting a little more astrologically serious toward the end of the week here. Nothing to worry too much about. Friday, August 21st brings us one single transit, and it is a bit of a toughie with Venus opposing Saturn from 14 degrees of Libra over to Aries. And this might have us feeling a little lonely or isolated, a bit depressed or just kind of low. We might go into a scarcity mindset about various resources. We might feel kind of stuck or stymied or stagnant, like reality is just fucking stacked against us. And hey, arguably it is, right? So do try to be as gentle and patient and compassionate with yourself and others as you can around Friday. But also we can use this transit as a helpful reality check, right? As a wake-up call about any relational issues we've been avoiding. Remember, Saturn wants us to act with integrity. So when it comes to living out our Venusian values in a better way, this might be an uncomfortable moment, but an instructive one if we can face it head on. And that brings us to Saturday, August 22nd, when the moon will move into the Saturn-ruled sign of hardworking Capricorn. And then the sun will move into the fellow Earth sign of Virgo for the start of Virgo season. Now listen, I have my sun in Virgo, so I am pretty fucking biased about this sign, but I do think that Virgo is an underrated part of the zodiac. This is basically back to school vibes, right? It's about wrapping up summer, getting our heads back in the game, getting organized, preparing for the autumn and winter months ahead. It's about the discernment of harvest season, of separating the wheat from the chaff, as they say. Now, during Leo season, we've been talking about developing our sense of self and our personalities through creatively expressing ourselves, putting ourselves out there, shining our light, and just having fun in the moment. But Virgo wants to take that a step further. It wants to perfect what came up to the surface during Leo season, and it wants to make it useful to be of service. So the next month is a perfect time to think about how you're concretely serving your communities, other people, and yourself too. Because Virgo is a sign associated with physical health and with daily mundane routines. So this is a good time to check in with and refresh those areas of your life as best you can. And I do mean as best you can, because the big pitfall you may have heard of when it comes to Virgo is perfectionism. We Virgos have a tendency to beat ourselves up over our flaws and failings, to hold ourselves and everybody else to very high standards, and to be pretty judgmental and critical of ourselves and others at times. So from personal experience, I can tell you that the big trick with Virgo is to emphasize growth mindset, to focus on how much you're learning, how much you're growing, how much you're trying, rather than how perfect your results or your outcomes are. Because perfection doesn't actually exist, and it's a tool of white supremacy that we're all in the process of unlearning. I was looking through some old notes the other day and saw something Logan had told me a while back that I had written down. Perfectionism is bullshit, but excellence is not. So we can strive to take really good care of ourselves and others. We can strive to serve, to learn and grow with humility without resorting to that self-loathing, self-punishing mindset that the overculture teaches us to internalize. So that's the assignment for Virgo season. And then let's wrap up this week with Sunday, August 23rd. As the sun slides into Virgo, it'll form a trine to Chiron, the wounded healer, which, remember, is retrograde at the very beginning of Taurus. And this emphasizes the knowledge aspect of Chiron, the learning and teaching, because this dude, mythologically, was a teacher and a tutor of a lot of different subjects. He knew so many healing arts and sciences and practices that he shared with others. So hopefully this transit can inspire us to do the same. And as we enter Virgo season, may I remind all of us that we can learn, we can grow, we can change. We can pick up new skills. We can get better at healing ourselves and others and being of service. No matter who we are and what challenges we carry through our lives. Because those things can be hindrances, but they can also be unique gifts and sources of wisdom. All right, y'all. I'm Alice Pope signing off on this week's Astrological Weather Report.
Let me respectfully remind you. Life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Tonight marks one less day of your life. Take heed. The time to awaken is now. Awaken. Do not squander your life. Wow!
So this is not a fully digested or formulated thought, but I just wanted to share it while I'm thinking about it. Say hi to the gang, by the way. So the whole personal responsibility thing is bullshit, because we know that individual choices cannot by themselves stop the larger problems. But also, all collective and systemic solutions are the work of individual people acting in concert, right? So the question is, how do we empower each other to take the individual actions necessary to help the collective, while not essentially bowing to the idea that personal responsibility is the be-all, end-all, and that's what's going to save us. Because honestly, I see so many people just sort of checking out and not doing more individually because they are aware of the fact that just by themselves they can't do it all. Like, it really seems like we've made a both-and question into an either-or question, and that's not helping us. Like, we can't form a collective if we don't have individuals doing the utmost.